Hello, and welcome to another edition of Coffee Talk with immigration attorney Brian D. Lerner. In this particular episode, I'd like to talk about all of the Central American children that have been coming across the border and creating all the news and the stories and the issues that come along with that, and give you my thoughts on it, and also let you know what can be done, maybe what should be done, and maybe what is in the cards for the future. First, let me just give you a bit of a history on what's going on. Um, if you're talking about kids from El Salvador, Honduras, Guatemala, basically, what's happening or what has happened is there has been a large influx of those kids coming across the border illegally, of course, in the hopes of obtaining some kind of legal stay here or some kind of lawful permanent residency. And there's been a great deal of children that's happened to. And what's happening is first let's look behind the reasons. Okay, the countries that they're coming from, they are so bad as far as with violence, with economics, that the parents are actually putting their kids through these illegal treks, these dangerous treks through another country, through the desert, in the hopes to give them a better life. And basically, the way that it is panning out is, a lot of the kids are making it over, but then policy-wise, what's happening afterwards is a different issue. And so the problem here, or where it started, is the extreme conditions of those countries is forcing the parents to do this. Okay, just think about it. If you were essentially having to do this to your own kid, if you're in the U.S., you wouldn't even think about it. Or most countries, it would just be unreal to even consider the possibility that you would, pay some coyote, a large sum of money to, transport and get your kid to another country for a better life. So that's essentially what's driving it. And you also look at the violence. I mean, I have lots of clients that are getting asylum from these countries, and like Guatemala and so forth. They run a business, or they on a block with a nice neighborhood, and these gangs come by and they basically say, give us money or we'll kill you, type thing. And if you don't, they do. And there doesn't seem to be any enforceable law to get these people, so it's just running rampant, the violence, and which drives also the bad economic conditions, because nobody wants to go there, nobody wants to invest, nobody wants to do business, type thing. So all of this leads to the reality of what has happened with these kids coming over now. What is it that, first of all, that's happening? And before I get into what can be done, what's actually happening when the kids get over here? Well, policy has changed a little bit now. It seems like they're trying to get these kids into deportation proceedings and get them removed outside the United States as fast as possible, so as to send a message not to just send your kids over here from the Central American countries, to find some other way to do it, because they're just going to be returned. And if that message apparently would get out, then maybe the influx of children from these third world countries would stop. So that seems to be the current policy. But what was happening, which is why so many kids are coming over, is because they would come over, they were juveniles, they would come over, they'd get their credible fear interview, they'd get a work permit, and then they'd be in the system, and they would go through the asylum hearings for a lengthy period of time, all the while they're here safely inside the U.S. So because word got back that they were getting these work permits relatively easy, and were in the system, and were able to stay here legally while they were in the system, all these Central American countries were thinking, well, let's give our kid a chance. Let's send our kid over. He or she will be able to stay there as well. And so, before we knew it, there was a lot of Central American juveniles, which were minors, which were coming over here, and which were, they particularly didn't do anything wrong. They're just trying to escape their country because it's so bad. So, what is it that they can do? Let me talk about the law. What is it that they can do once they come in the U.S.? Well, the law says if you have a credible fear of persecution, then you get an interview from an asylum officer, and if the officer believes you basically, and it falls under one of the 5 enumerated categories for asylum, then you will be allowed, you being the child, will be allowed to stay in the U.S., to be transferred to immigration court, and to present their asylum case. Now, if you're watching this and you're over 18 and you're educated, you know that would be hard to do for anyone, right? Yet that's what these kids apparently are expected to do. So, first things first, if they can get representation from an immigration attorney, even if it's pro bono, or if there's an organization that allows relatively low cost representation, at least they can get the credible fair interview packet. What I do when my firm is retained is we will actually prepare the credible fair interview packet before they ever take one step inside the country. And we actually prepare it, and then we send it to them, whether it's a child or an adult or whatever it is. And then once they come in the country, they hand the credible fair interview packet to the officer, who then assumably will give it to the asylum officer for the actual interview, of which an attorney actually is. You have the right to have an attorney present at the credible fair interview. Okay, and again, this isn't if you win this. It's not like they've won asylum, but it means that they have provided sufficient enough evidence to show that they have a real fear under one of the enumerated categories. And we're talking, political or religious or social group and so on, of going back, and then they can later prepare the merits of their asylum hearing in the deportation proceedings, okay, or removal hearings. So that's the first thing. And if in fact they do have a credible fear of returning and they win, then they can obtain lawful permanent residency status based upon that. So that's one area. There's also the special immigrant juvenile petitions, and that's a whole nother area which doesn't necessarily have anything to do with asylum. And they have to be deemed to be a ward of the court, and there's a whole procedure that one can go through, assuming they're under 18, to try to get status that way. So there are different ways. Now, what should not be done is they are put into removal proceedings and just issued a deportation order, or they are removed when they entered the U.S. without even having an opportunity to submit the credible fair to the credible fair interview, or they are placed in detention for an inordinate amount of time before they are given a credible fair interview. All of those are really not acceptable. So if they are placed in detention for an inordinate amount of time, then there are certain things that we can do in order to stop the policy of doing this, because maybe they are placed there without the interview sort of as a guise of trying to deny them the right to their credible fair interview, or at least passing a message that if the other children come, they'll be sitting in detention for a long time before their rights are given to them. So if you know somebody or you are such a person, then there can be a habeas corpus action that's filed for illegal or unlawful detention. You do have a right for the credible fair interview, and if that right is given, it should be taken, okay? Meaning that if you really have this type of interview and the law permits it, there really is no viable reason that you should be in detention for all of this time, okay? So these are the types of situations where there is relief for these people. Now, regardless of whether you agree or disagree that all of the Central American kids are, coming over here and are, trying to take, the American system type deal. America does have asylum laws, which it allows people who come here to obtain the benefits of asylum so they're not returned to their countries and persecuted or killed or tortured or whatever it is. And so if they qualify and if the case is presented and if they win, they get to stay here. If not, then there's other options, but they also would be either voluntarily deported or voluntarily removed and so forth. It really depends. So, ultimately, there should be some immigration policies which, stop the need for the kids to come here in the first place in this manner. Certainly any parent on the planet who puts their kids through that is desperate. So, possibly some new immigration laws that will allow, a more realistic way for these children to come in, perhaps with the families, perhaps under other normal immigration circumstances. In any case, as the law stands now, if you find that someone who is improperly being detained, someone who's not given their credible interview, if you know someone who's issued a removal order without being given the rights of what they do qualify for, you should definitely have an immigration attorney jump in and see what can be done. They need help and they need representation, and there's ways of certainly helping them. So if you liked my video, go ahead and click like, go ahead and click subscribe. I usually do about a video a week, and we'll do more on the coming weeks. Thank you.